welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at hallelujah, Fields of Fire 2 from GMT Games. It's designed by Ben Ho, and this is the long-awaited sequel to Fields of Fire, as you may well have imagined. So, Fields of Fire is 1st Infantry Division, covers Normandy, Korea and Vietnam. This is 5th Marines, and you can see it's World War II, Korea and Vietnam. This is brand new, fresh off the presses. This is a solitaire only game. I'm going to say that right away. So if you've got no interest in solo gaming, this might not be for you. It is a very deep, rich and complex game as well. And it's people complain about its accessibility, and that's not an invalid complaint. This is not the easiest game to get into. It's a lot of rules, a lot of reading to be done. But it is a very rewarding game if you want to put the time into it. So, it comes in a 2-inch box and it's chock full on the back. It's solitaire only. Oh, let me actually show you that. The complexity 5. Little bit of a joke. This is one of them all complex games, I believe. This is a fairly arbitrary scale. Some of the games you're like, okay, this should be much higher. Some of them it should not be as high as that. But this has 3 campaigns in it. One is World War II, and it's the invasion of Peleliu. So that's going to be very interesting. And then you got the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. And then the Vietnam campaign in this one is the Battle of Hue City in 1968. Which is part of the Tet Offensive, so that's going to be fascinating because I know there's a lot of new stuff in there which looks really cool. An example of that is this compound card, which is a new kind of a terrain type thing, so very, very exciting to see something very new in this system. What we'll do is we'll just crack it open and get looking. And you can see there's like no room in this box, so I have a 3-inch kind of present, or basically a shoebox. I fill everything into the counter trays and store all the cards. It's no way you're going to get it back in this box. Just trust me on that one. So, bag of bags, that's nice. The rulebook is the first thing you see in the box, and it is 64 pages long. This is not a small rulebook by any stretch of the imagination. And whilst it does have a lot of full-color examples of the tokens, cards, text, it shows you things like line of fire, command, communication. All the different actions are in kind of charts that you can look at. Networks for phone lines and radio communication. It shows you a lot of this stuff. But make no mistake, this is a lot of reading. There is a lot that you have to input into it. It's just there's a lot of investment into this. But it does guide you through and show you a lot of the stuff, like line of sight examples. It's all, once you learn it's actually understandable, but actually learning it can seem daunting because the rulebook is incredibly detailed. This is a really detailed summary of play. And you will need that. You will need that to learn. And it does have here some streamlining play for beginners, where you get rid of certain bits and pieces just to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Communications being one of those extra things that you have to think about. And if you mess it up, you're like, whoops. So they're just like, yeah, you can just leave it alone for a bit whilst you get familiar with the system. But big rulebook. Now we have the briefing booklet 1, and this has explanations of events, and it has the Peleliu campaign in it, and I believe this has the Korea campaign in it as well. And if you haven't read the rules, a lot of this might seem like a lot of jargon and things like that, but this basically tells you what's in your company, how many steps they have, what kind of ammunition that they have and how much of it, how many different colored smoke bombs and star clusters and things like that you have. each of those have different colors and meanings. You assign the meanings to those. So when you throw a green smoke grenade, what does that signal to the rest of the company? You literally have to write that down on a piece of paper. So this is a very crunchy game. It has a lot of detail in it, but for a solitaire game, it's very, very fun once you get it all to go. This tells you all the different attachments and experience points you got here, fire support charts. And then you start getting into the Imperial Japanese Army force packages. So the way this game works is you'll move into an area, you might contact something, you roll a die, it tells you, hey, this is what you find. And then you cross-reference that with this long chart. This is what it is. And it's a rifle squad and 2 tanks marked exposed in the placement card. And then it tells you where to put it and all this kind of stuff. So you might move into an area and you're ambushed with something. Or you move into an area and someone's ranged an artillery and you get blown away. So there's a lot of really cool stuff, and those are usually very thematically done the way the game works. You find a sniper. Well, you don't find a sniper in that space. The sniper's actually 5 cards away in the highest building, and you now have to run across the map to get him before he kills everyone. So just some really, really interesting play here. So this is all the Peleliu campaign, and it starts with like shore invasion. That's pretty intense. Peleliu campaign. And then we got the Chosun Reservoir campaign. And that's all of that here. That looks like that's... How many missions is that? Mission 6, mission 7. So that's 7 missions in that campaign. Yeah, looks like that's 7 missions. So that's pretty intense. Then we have the second briefing book, and this has the Vietnam Hue City campaign in it, which this does have a lot of new stuff in it. Like we talked about those buildings and things like that. So this shows you here, this is the master map for missions 2 through 7. The map is Hue City. I mean, how cool is this? If you've played Field to Fire, this is something very new and very different, and I'm very excited to play through this. You going literally door to door fighting in the streets. That's just something very new to this game, and I'm excited to play this. Historical notes on all of the different campaigns and all of the different missions. So there's a lot of history and research that was done in this, and you can't beat that when a game includes this kind of detailed history and things like that. And that's what I love in a game like this. Let's see. Okay, mission log, enemy info, attachments. This is for writing down details, and if we look on the back, it'll tell you your different breakdowns of all of units, who's in what, where, and where, what kind of a network you're using, if you're using company tactical net, radios, or field telephones. These are those pyrotechnics. You literally label the meaning of what all of these mean. So when you throw that, your company will respond in a certain way. So there's some bookkeeping. You use one of those sheets. It's a whole pad of those. And then we get into the play aid charts. So we have abbreviations. Nice. This tells you what you can and can't do based on what situations that you're in. This is those force packages that were for the Imperial Japanese Army. You have a play aid card, so you don't need to keep referring and flipping to that page of the rules. Same for the Communist Chinese forces for Korea and the NVA North Vietnamese. Vehicle and tank weapons chart. And then action attempt symbols. These relate to the cards. The cards will have certain symbols on it. When you get pulled, you can do certain things. This gives you the gist of what those are. So again, read the rules, then you can do that. For Vietnam, you have a helicopter control card. So you'll be choppering in guys, and there's kind of a delay and movement aspect of that. You have to get them there. Let's see. Are those the same? U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Army. So those are different. Okay. I'm not sure. Those are different. But I'm sure I don't know if that's just flavor or if those are different particularly. LZ, just SC. Looks like they got different choppers. Interesting. Main play, chart, infantry combat, action menus, all the things that you can do. And then some chart tables for weapons capability and all that kind of stuff. So this is the main one you'll be flipping through to do stuff. And then we come to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sheets of counters. So let's take a look. Okay, here we've got Marines. These are your platoons, your squads within your platoons. And you got heavy weapons, mortars, engineers, heavy machine guns, tanks, Chinooks, LVTs. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff in here. You got litter teams, paralyzed units, casualties, different attachments, different cave systems, and on the I'm punching these on the back. You've got I'm not punching these. These are all casualty markers, and these are different fire teams versus the kind of the full versions of these. So as they get injured, they become fire teams. Their fire becomes less effective. And these punch very easily. If you could see that, these are just falling right out. So that's nice that those aren't going to be a hassle to do anything with. Here's the baddies. Whoop. These are probably communist Chinese. And these look like they're NVA. I think these are probably Imperial Japanese for the Peleliu campaign. Again, double-sided. And these are Americans. So here you've got probably your late war stuff. You got some M16s here. That's Vietnam looking. More of your Marine platoons there. And those are different based on which campaign that you're doing. But here's your company HQ, your XO first sergeant. And then your platoon commanders. You got tank platoon, machine gun platoons, mortar sections, and engineer platoons as well. And this game is a command structure. You're using each of those to activate more of them, to give them more and more and more commands so that you can actually effectively do what you need to. These are those pyrotechnics we talked about. You have like hand illuminations, red star clusters. When you pop this red star cluster on the back, you literally put a red star cluster out, and that's in a space, and whatever that says, maybe it's call for help because you need it, or it's a general advance, that's what the reaction will be. Oop. Reds. These punch very easily, as you can see. These are ammunition counters, volume of fire markers. These are really important. This is how the enemy fires and you fire back, basically. How much fire you can lay based on what weapons you have and the terrain. These are your company radios or phone lines if you're using phones and field telephones. And then the last sheet. These are literally just falling out. So you have some building markers that you'll put in terrains. These are your potential contacts. So you move into a place, there's a potential contact, you roll a die to see if there is anything going to pop up. And if there's a whole bunch of stuff on the map, it's less likely more stuff will happen. But if you have nothing on the map, it's more likely that bad stuff happens because there's nothing bad's happened to you yet. And then you consult A, B, and C refers to different charts in those force packages. And then you have your kind of position of fire. That's your which direction, who you're firing at, basically across different cards, which are terrains. Objective markers and some activated markers as well. So these are a lot of administrative counters. There is a lot of counters in this game, as you see. There's 5 sheets of those. So you do need a lot of space. I have 2 GMT counter trays and some baggies, and I will use all of those for this. This is a little card just to kind of keep everything together. Some people put all of the counters, or put a lot of them out on the board. I don't like doing that. It's too many counters for me. This is a little organizer. So all my CO and the HQS, they go here. each of my platoons might have a bunch of rifle grenades, and you put them in each of these. A bunch of them might have those smoke grenades. Put them in these boxes. You don't have to carry around all those extra weapons and just markers and things. You keep them here off board. This is very invaluable. Everything else in here is 4 decks of cards. Now the decks of cards, let's just check. Ooh, potential contact C. Okay, good. They haven't hidden anything from me. Still, the main part of these are each of these decks are for each of the campaigns. Okay. Fields of Fire, Peleliu 1944. This is the Chosin Reservoir, Korea 1950, and the Battle of Hue 1968. We'll open those in a second. Before we do, these are the action cards, and there's some reference cards here. So these are you will use in all of the campaigns. So there's a few reference cards here. These are just little mini play aids, mini versions of the big play aids, which are mini versions of the rulebook. So as you progress through the game, you'll get fewer and fewer bits of card lying around. But the deck, this is the action deck, and you will go through this a lot. So each of these actions cards has a whole bunch of stuff on it. You have a random number generator down here. You have a hit and miss chart, and then you have a whole bunch of actions that do different things, and then you have like a hit effect chart. And then you have these for the commands. You'll issue this number of commands, or if you're in a lesser situation, you'll issue the smaller number. So these are really powerful ones. As you get through the deck, you get really weak ones, 2s and 1s. Those are very, very bad. Now, all of these symbols, so you got a little target symbol, an HQ symbol, an explosion symbol, a grenade. It says cover up here. It says rally right here. It says contact right here. All of these things mean stuff, and that's what this reference card was for. It tells you what all of those things mean. You might make like an HQ check, and if you pull cards and one of them says HQ, that's really good. When you make an attempt to make a grenade attack, you draw 2 cards, which can be modified, and you're looking for literally just looking for a grenade symbol. So it's really simple how some of this stuff works, and that's the game. As big as that rulebook is, the mechanics of the game aren't that massively complicated once you can get it figured out. Let's look through this, because this is how the majority of the game is played. Is you set out a bunch of these cards in like a grid, and these are terrains, and you move your squads and platoons and their weapons through the terrains to meet your objectives. It's really simple. So here we have, and this is Peleliu, right? So we have surf, literally moving through the water to get all the surf zones onto the beach. And once you're on the beach, you're going to then move on to the dunes. Through the dunes into the palm groves, right? You're gotta go take the airfield on Peleliu. That was the whole point of taking the place. The airfield's massive, and there is absolutely 0 cover. There's like 1 potential cover, and it's really hard to find. Once you get into the jungle, you get a ton of cover, and it's much easier to find that cover. But you know, it comes with its own problems. Tanks real slow going through the jungle. And then Coral Ridge, it's nice to have just tons of totally different types of terrain here. So this is nice. A lot of it is flavor versus the original game, but that's very cool. The beach landing I'm very excited for. Just something very different. Let's look at let's look at Korea. All right. Open. That's not nice. This is cold winter. I think this is November 1950, so this is a lot of winter stuff going on here. A lot of open terrain, rocky hill. Tanks can't go on the rocky hills. Open hills, and these are photos from the actual areas. And I really like games that do that, especially consistently. Just, I don't know, gives you a real look into it, and it's not just an illustration. A lot of open hills here, so terrain's going to be, elevation's going to be a big part of this. Elevation's going to block terrain and interfere with your communications and things like that. So That's very interesting. A lot of it is different hills of different types. Drawers, scrub pine hill, open hill, scrub pines, shacks. That looks quite barren, but that's going to be very interesting to play through with a lot of elevation stuff. That's the fun stuff. The Vietnam. This is exciting. Because half of these are those buildings, literally fighting in the streets. And I think that's something very new, so I'm very, very excited for that. Okay, so here's all these buildings. This is like a whole bunch of them. This is complex building. Volume of fire +6, volume of fire +6, and it tells you here, you've got inside, and you've got in the streets. So if you got these together, in the streets between the buildings, right? Complex buildings, those are all the same. These are different, although frankly it looks the same. And those have the same, yeah, complex buildings. So those will have the same, they look different, but they have the same values. You have a compound here, courtyard, garden compound, and it looks like those have walls around them. So you might not be able to fire out of the first floor because they got a wall. You might have to get into the second floor. I don't know if that's what that is, but that looks like that's what that could be. Light detached buildings. Large interior building. Complex buildings. So that's really neat. That looks cool. So we have here a traffic circle, rubble, traffic circle, compounds, more buildings, a park. Road embankment. Oh, that's a color one. Those are the first color ones we've seen. Whoops. More road embankments. Canal, cane fields. And with the Hue City one, there was that master setup. It's a fixed map. Hue City was Hue City. So that's really interesting playing through that. Because a lot of the other ones like Peleliu, well, and I don't know if that's the case with the beach, but later on, it becomes, or in Normandy at least, in the first version, you'd randomly put the board out and it would be what it is. Here, at least in that Hue campaign, the terrain, the city's fixed. It was what it was. So that's very interesting. So there's a lot to unpack here. That's a hell of a lot of rules to read. I really enjoy this game. I can understand why it is not for everyone, but I do recommend giving it a crack if you have the opportunity. This has been the brand new Fields of Fire 2 with the old breed from GMT Games. Give it a look if you're interested. I'm very excited to play this, and you'll hear a lot from this one coming soon from me. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.